breakfast in bed. I like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me. And since I don't have a butler, I have to do it myself.
Oh my! Welcome everybody to another installment of these Monday Nitro review series. My name is the Austinator, and we already got somebody in the chat. We got Jeremy in the chat. What's up, Jeremy? And yeah, this is weeks 3 and 5 reviews of WCW Monday Nitro. We're coming out of Fall Brawl, beginning the build to Halloween Havoc 1995. Machine versus Machine. We'll get back into that in a little bit. But first off, I want to just bring in my co-host. We got Shifty in the house. What's up, Shifty?
What's up? What's up?
Man, we're 5 weeks into WCW Monday Nitro. We just went through WCW Fall Brawl 1995 War Games, and a lot has happened. If you haven't checked out the last 2 reviews streams that we've done, please go check them out because you'll definitely miss quite a bit of context.
Yep.
But before we begin, Shifty, how you doing tonight?
I was doing okay, but after watching these episodes, I don't know. I got a certain song stuck in my head and I can't get it out.
I totally understand. We'll probably get into that in a bit, but Shifty, remember,
Yes.
Next episode we're covering a match that we're both pretty excited about.
We are.
Yes, we're gonna be watching Sting versus the Shark next episode.
Oh yes. I'm looking forward to that. Yes, of course it'll probably end with a run-in like all these Dungeon of Doom matches have, but hopefully not.
I hope not either. But before we get into that, we got to talk about these next 3 episodes of Nitro. I'm going to be quite honest. I wouldn't say I was, well, I guess I could say underwhelmed because it was a bit underwhelming. Like, these last 3 weeks were done to sort of like set up the pay-per-view, the next pay-per-view in particular, but very underwhelming in the sense of, I think in terms of the wrestling, there was a lot of it in terms of like how much we're going to cover, but they did not run very long. Like,
No. I mean, of course, hour-long shows. So,
right.
But there was some highlights in there. I think the best match of all 3 episodes was definitely the origins of the whole cruiserweight division with Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko, which had a great match. Unfortunately, it was interrupted by a Hulk Hogan promo, but we'll get to that. That's episode 3, I think.
Yes, we will definitely get into that when we get into that. But yeah, there was definitely some solid stuff in there. Jeremy says, I would never wear a Hulk Hogan t-shirt in WWE, but I would do so everywhere else. Very interesting. I mean, I will say, though, when it comes to Hulk Hogan's WCW Hulkamania shirt, I actually thought that looked pretty cool. It was almost like a redone version of his Hulk Rules shirt in the WWF, which I dig it.
And the Hulkamania shirt.
Yeah. And, of course, he had the Pasta Mania shirt, too, which...
Oh, yes.
I think I don't know if he even wore it to a Nitro. I don't think he ever did.
I'm sure the restaurant shut down the week after, but...
Oh, probably. But enough about Pasta Mania, because we got quite a bit to cover here on this week's episode. A lot happens here in these next 3 weeks, but again, like I said, if you haven't watched our Fall Brawl review, check that out because you're gonna miss quite a bit of context here when we talk about some things. So, yeah, let's get into it. WCW Nitro from September 18th, 1995. This show took place in Johnson City, Tennessee. This was the Fall Brawl kind of recap show almost, because literally a lot of these next 3 weeks are a lot of recaps. So I'm not necessarily going to cover them because, again, we're going to talk about it here. So if you guys have seen Nitro before and you're like, oh, why didn't you guys cover the recap? Because we're basically the recap of the recap. So
Yeah.
the ratings for this week, it actually went uncontested. Raw was not airing Raw this week, but Nitro did, and it did a 1.9.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it wasn't on that week. Usually it was a dog show or some sort of tennis, like Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. I don't know what if it's which one it is during this time in September, but that was usually the two things that took it off, and they would move to either Wednesdays or Thursdays for
Yeah,
Raw.
it must have been something big, because even Nitro, who last time did I think like a 2 point, like their highest rating was a 2.5, but this week they did a 1.9. So I'm wondering if something major did happen,
Yeah,
where nobody was watching.
yeah. Sometimes I would even skip Nitro to watch the dog show because the dog show was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's understandable. So the show, of course, starts off with a Fall Brawl recap of sorts, and then, of course, it gets interrupted by an ambulance coming into the arena, where everybody's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then, of course, it's Taskmaster and the Giant coming out of the back of the ambulance, and they're like, "Yeah, we killed Hulk Hogan. We'll do it again." And then
Okerlund was still pushing that the Giant was Andre's son. It's like your father would be rolling in his grave if he saw how you were acting.
Then the Giant was like, if my father was still alive, he'd be by my side, killing Hulk Hogan with each other.
And the weird thing about it is, they must have dug him up and did the Big Boss Man scenario in WWF. He's had 2 dead father gimmicks at the Big Show.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah.
The Giant, Paul, the Big Show having 2, it's actually pretty crazy to think about here. But I will give WCW this. I think they did a pretty good job over these last 3 episodes in building up how threatening the Giant was.
Yeah.
He destroyed almost most of the roster at this point.
Oh yeah.
Which we'll talk about again throughout, but they did a great job at making the Giant look threatening for Hogan's next opponent, which will be at Halloween Havoc, of course. The Machine versus Machine.
And then, on top of that, they made Hogan look even more like immortal because, he got his neck snapped twice. Usually a kill a man in an action film.
This man died twice.
Yes.
And then came back to life again. This man's crazy. So basically the first portion of Nitro, a lot of it is just recapping Fall Brawl, and I'm going to get to Jeremy's comment. Johnny B. Bad was great, then he went to WWE and was crapped on.
Yeah. Well, he started off good until his wife became more popular than he was, and they pivoted. He had the was it Wild Man Mark Marrow, and it seemed like it was going to go well, but then Sable took off, and yeah. But that's a whole different company.
Very different. What's up, Deshaun? Good to see you. Yeah. So first match of the show is the not a World Tag Title match. It's the American Males versus the Blue Bloods. But just as when the Blue Bloods were coming out, Harlem Heat show up, and we're like, wait, why are the Blue Bloods on Nitro? We're the champions. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrestle these guys instead, and we're gonna defend the belts. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
They said that, but they ended it with sucker.
That's very true. He did say sucker. David Q comes in. Is this the same year as the insane cage match with Savage against the Coalition to end Hulkamania? No, that is next year. At Uncensored in the Doomsday cage or against the Alliance. Yeah, that was stupid. We'll get to that when we get to that. Again, say what you will about WCW, but at least they're very creative, even if sometimes they're too creative and maybe shouldn't do some of the things they've done. But so now it's a tag title match. A lot of Harlem Heat dominance at the early going, but it actually starts with the brawl. Then Stevie Ray dominates, but gets double drop kicked by the American males, which is Scotty Riggs and Marcus Bagwell, aka Buff Bagwell. Stevie Ray ends up hitting a side slam on Bagwell, which then Booker T ends up getting a tag at some point where he catches Bagwell out of a leapfrog with a power slam, which I thought looked really cool. Stevie Ray ends up hitting like Scotty Riggs like in the back, which then leads to Booker T hitting the scissors kick. A lot of back and forth tags here between Harlem Heat, where Booker T ends up hitting the Harlem side kick. Riggs would then try a sunset flip, but then Booker T ends up getting the tag, which then Stevie Ray hits the body slam. A lot of holds here too. Booker T ends up missing. I keep forgetting the what's the move he does? It's off the top. It's the Harlem Hangover. Yes, the standing Harlem Hangover, but he ends up missing, which then Scotty Riggs ends up, getting the hot tag, which then Marcus Bagwell gets the hot tag, hits a couple drop kicks, which then the match breaks down again. And then in comes Robert Parker.
Yes.
Again, this is during the whole, Sister Sherry and Robert Parker, kind of dating each other. So Sherry's trying to like hit, I believe it's Bagwell with her shoe, but then Rob Parker ends up sweeping her off her feet and like carries her to the back. Booker T goes for the pump handle for like a pump handle maneuver, but Bagwell ends up countering it into a pin for the 3, resulting in a title change.
But it might be contested because it wasn't official and approved by commissioner or president. I don't know what they called him, Nick Bockwinkel, who I didn't even know was the commissioner at the time. But
I did not know that either.
Yeah, that guy is. He used to roll with Bobby Heenan when Heenan was a wrestler back in the 70s.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yes, and if you've never seen Bobby Heenan in his wrestling career, those are some pretty entertaining matches. So go back and check them out.
Especially the ones with the weasel suit.
Yes, no, yeah, but I'm talking about way back when he was younger and he was actually an actual wrestler and he's actually built and he's running around and he's actually wrestling. He was. I didn't even know he was an actual wrestler until a few years ago. So it's a lot of matches to go back and check out.
That is very interesting because I never knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got new tag champs. It's very interesting to have the title change hands here, especially with Harlem Heat just winning the belts the previous night at Fall Brawl. But I guess for shock value and the ratings, but it's kind of one of those like shocking moments, but not necessarily. I don't even know what the word for it is. Like, I guess
hot potato booking.
Hot potato, yeah. I mean,
yeah, I don't think that they were ready for a title reign.
No.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Probably just to give people something to talk about. Like, hey, you need to watch Nitro. Well, people were tuning in probably because Raw wasn't on, so they wanted to do something big in that first match to keep them glued. So that probably worked.
He wasn't Buff. No, he was just Marcus Bagwell, the American males.
Yeah, and I think that was the third time he had won the tag title because he had previously won it with Too Cold Scorpio, I think, and with the Patriot. He had tagged with those guys before.
I believe so. Yeah.
And he was only there for a few years before that, so he had racked up quite a few title wins.
Yeah, like I think Buff. Gonna go off on a tangent real quick because we still have a lot to cover here, but Buff was somebody that I feel like he had the look, and I do think he was decent enough in the ring that I wish that he did more.
He had the stuff.
He had the stuff, yes.
Okay.
Buff had the stuff. Jeremy comes in. The Hogan heel turn was what made me like heels. The Hogan heel turn, I think, is one of the most iconic moments in wrestling because without that heel turn, the Monday Night Wars would not have been as big as they were.
Yeah.
Best heel manager of all time.
Oh boy, yeah, that's tough. You got Heenan, you got Hart, you got Heyman. That's tough.
Do
You
you
got
want to
Cornette.
throw Cornette? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to throw Robert Parker in there? Because I don't.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I would say
I mean,
for
it's a good character, but
Yeah.
no. I mean, if you didn't watch WCW at the time, you wouldn't know him. He didn't transcend that period.
I'd say, you know what, and maybe this is just me, but I would say Heenan would probably be the best heel manager because like I know people maybe make the argument for Paul Heyman, but Bobby Heenan, like, you gotta think, Bobby Heenan was, a manager to some of the biggest stars in wrestling in the in like the 80s. Like, plus, he literally managed the guys who faced Hulk Hogan in 2 main events of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not disputing a lot of guys like Cornette and Heyman in that conversation because I could understand, but Heenan, if you really look at it on paper, I think Bobby Heenan did more than those guys, debatably.
Yeah. Definitely.
As far as the match goes, I gave it like a C+. It was just an okay match. It was just too quick. The finish, I guess, was shocking enough to where I was like, oh, that's interesting. But other than that, nothing much to talk about here.
Yeah. I think that was just for the casuals to be like, oh, there was a title change. Huh. Hey, that's neat.
Yeah.
But,
that's kind of what I think.
The American males, even though Buff, he had, a good track record, they were kind of crapped upon by the fans. It wasn't a very good gimmick. I mean, they had the Axe body spray or whatever video package, and they had a terrible theme song that people made fun of. They weren't, they weren't booked very well, but the casuals wouldn't know that.
No, they definitely would not. But hey, at least they got some talking about the with the tag title change. But other than that, nothing much to say.
There is something during the match. There's fans on the hard camera side, about I guess 5 or 6 of them, held up this long printout banner. It said, "We rather have it raw." I don't know if it was confiscated, but they had it up for quite a bit there.
I did notice that. Yeah. It's kind of like weird because it's like kind of like an early sign of like tribalism in a way with wrestling fans.
I wonder if they knew Raw wasn't even on that night.
They probably didn't, but but honestly, I think this probably would have been a better show than what Raw was giving out at the time.
Yeah.
Davey Q comes in. I hear Heenan helped Hogan get into the business. Did he? I don't know. I'd believe it.
I don't know. I've watched so many Hogan documentaries, I can't remember that. I'd have to go back and check.
Jeremy comes in. DX is a ripoff of the NWO. It's a fact.
Well, yeah, I don't think there would be a DX. I mean, I don't think there would be the second formation of DX if there hadn't been NWO. But DX was before NWO with Shawn and Triple H.
Yeah, because that was when the Click. Because I guess the Click was more of a before the NWO was a thing. But
no, I'm wrong about that. No, the Click was a thing, but the NWO came first. Yeah, he's right. Yeah, because Triple H was suspended, and then he came back. That's when they did the DX, the first incarnation of DX. Okay, he's right. He's totally right.
Very right. So After this, we get a in-ring promo with Mean Gene Okerlund, Ric Flair, who's coming out in the butterfly robe. Rick's cutting a promo, talking about his match with Flyin Brian later on in the main event. Rick basically just goes on a tirade about how Arn Anderson broke the code and how, they were friends, but he brought in an outsider, so now he's going to kick Flyin Brian's ass. And he even puts over Brian here, being, a great football player, but then says he's going to kick his ass too. And then,
this whole scenario of Rick and Arn and Pillman, and where you said it's going to go, I don't know if I'm going to totally understand the purpose of it. It just seems like they were just writing it on the fly.
Yeah, but I will say though, I think Ric Flair honestly is one of the main highlights so far for me, because the guy just has this charisma, and he had this great promo ability that with the great work rate.
The greatest of all time. It's what people have labeled him as the greatest of all time. It's him and Hogan. That's it. You could say Rock or Stone Cold, but no, it's Hogan or Ric Flair. That's the greatest of all time right there.
Absolutely. And then they're going to have a match where it's going to determine who's the better between the two of them. And they're going to have it 50 more times by the end of the series. So stay tuned to watch more Ric Flair Hulk Hogan matches. So yeah, again, kind of what I like about these promos is that they're very simple and to the point. It's to build up the match with him and Brian, but continuing the whole feud with him, Brian, and Arn Anderson. So again, great promo from Ric Flair here. And then, of course, before we get into our next match, we have to cover what's going on WCW Saturday night. Later on Saturday, we got Steven Regal taking on WCW United States Champion Sting. Yeah, I know everybody forgot that Sting's the champion here. We have a rematch from WCW Fall Brawl. We have Cobra taking on Sergeant Craig.
Oh, Lord.
Our favorite man. WCW Saturday night, getting all those bangers.
I like Pittman. I just don't care for that matchup there.
Yeah. I agree. And then we got Dusty Rhodes. He's going to be doing something on WCW Saturday night. And then we're going to get an update on WCW World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan.
The American Dream, baby. The American Dream going to do an interview on the Saturday night, the mothership, if you will.
See, the WCW is, Rick, I can't do a Dusty Rhodes impression, but it's very interesting because, I believe Dusty Rhodes ends up becoming one of the announcers with, I think he ends up doing main event with Shivani, because I heard him.
Then he does the pay-per-views because he does the Bash of the Beach the following year.
Yeah. So Dusty comes back in later on. I don't think he does Nitro. I don't know if he ever announced it. I think maybe later on he did, but
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because he was one of the bookers. I don't think he did any of the live shows except the pay-per-views.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too now, because it's because I definitely know he did pay-per-views, because he definitely did the Sting Hogan match at Starrcade, and I know he was there for Bash at the Beach, so it'll be interesting to see how the announced teams switch, as the series progresses. So again, stay tuned for that. And now we got Mr. Wonderful.
They call him Mr. Wonderful because that's his name. Wonderful. Oh my God. You know what this is? This is a total. He was like, okay, Paul, come here. We got a new gimmick for you. We want to revamp you for this new show. Like, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to give you when Lex was in WWF, we're going to give you the narcissist gimmick. Oh, wow. So we're going to have a couple of hot girls come out with a big-ass mirror, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to be posing and stuff, and I have fireworks. Well, we can't afford the fireworks. Oh, well, can we have the hot women? Well, we can't afford the hot women. No. Well, what about the big-ass mirror? Well, we could give you a mirror. Oh, so it's like Is it the big ass one? No, downsize it just a little bit. Oh, one of those with the handles with the ornate stuff around it. I can look inside and I can peer in it. Well, no, that's still a little bit too big. What are you talking about? Here, have this little compact mirror. That should do you. Oh, also, we can't afford the extravagant robes you used to wear, so we're going to have to cut them down to just jacket size. Oh, also, you used to have the matching color trunks and knee pads. We can't afford that either anymore. So you're going to have to go basic black with the boots and the knee pads. Oh, but it'll work, dude. So good luck.
I love that tirade there because, yeah, it kind of is what it is. I mean, I'll be honest. This gimmick, like this, I can't take serious whatsoever. I mean, from just a really, I don't know if it was intentionally bad or not intentionally bad, but the song's bad. The gimmick is silly.
Yeah, it's this was his last hurrah before they let him be one of the head trainers of the power plant. So it's just I don't know. They were trying to go for the WWF style character when they don't really know how to do well in WCW, and it shows with the Dungeon of Doom, or it's just that it had became outdated. Maybe I don't know. It's like they give him the narcissist gimmick, but they don't give him any of the tools that he would need to pull off the gimmick. Everything was he's got that tiny little mirror that he probably stole from some chick in the back, one of the ring rats, excuse me. But he probably just, hey, can I borrow your compact there? Sure, Mr. Wonderful.
No, she probably said it as Mr. Wonderful. God. All right. So he takes out Johnny B. Bad, who's going to get a WCW US title match against Sting in a couple weeks, which, spoiler alert, he's not going to get because someone slashed his tires. So just a bit of and also, again, Johnny B. Bad gets a really great reaction here. Like, he is, one of the top, at least, mid-card baby faces right now in WCW. I'd say him and I'd say even Alex Wright got a pretty good reaction when he came out for his match the following week. So I mean, you got some pretty high up and coming mid card guys for your TV title division, and, even US title stuff.
His popularity is definitely why WWE went after him. I mean, unless they saw his wife also before they signed him, but I'm sure his contract ran out, and that's why he went over there. WWF was willing to pay. I can't imagine with Ted Turner's money that they would just let him go. I don't know. I'd like to go back and listen to some of his interviews about why he made the jump or how that happened, because I don't know if WWF, really had the extra cash at that time to do anything, but I don't know. You would think with how over he was in WCW that they would try to re-sign him.
Yeah, and especially after 1995, which was the WWF's worst year in terms of financials. I just can't believe that they had a shit ton of money for Johnny B. Bad, aka Mark Marrow. Again, no disrespect to Mark Marrow, great talent, but I don't know if I could believe it, to be honest, because of just how badly off they were.
Maybe it was just Bischoff looking at I can get all these luchadors for the price of Mark Marrow. Maybe we should let him go. So maybe that was the decision.
Oh, could be. I mean, I'd believe it, but so I'm gonna break down this match here. Not a lot to talk about here again. Orndorff, kicks out, he's working on Johnny B. Bad's leg and he's stomping him out. Johnny B. Bad comes back with a hip toss and a body slam, but he ends up missing his top rope move where he ends up kicking him in the face. And on commentary throughout, they're talking about how Johnny B. Bad got stitches in his right eye after his match with Flyin Brian at the pay-per-view. Giant ends up missing a splash where Paul gets his knees up. Paul goes for the top rope splash, but he misses. Giant Bad launches himself over the top rope on Paul Orndorff on the floor, and then he ends up hitting a diving axe handle. They both trade pile driver attempts and a couple more counters where Giant Bad counters, I believe, something with a sunset flip, but then Paul Orndorff counters that into a pin and gets the 3, and then at the end of the match we hear Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah. Also, Nick Patrick got all up in his face at one point during the match. I forgot how physical Nick would get when he was refereeing. Sometimes if you pissed him off, he would really get all up in your face and be like, "Tell you what is what." I mean, that's one of the reasons why he got he became the NWO's head manager there for a while.
That is true. He does become the main ref for the NWO during that whole run in like 97, I believe, 96, 97. This was another match where, again, I feel like if they had a bit more time, I think it would have actually been pretty solid. But this is another match where I feel like it got ruined by just how short it was. Because
it was fun, but
yeah. Also, I thought it was very weird to have Paul Orndorff. Like, I get that Paul Orndorff is like showing off this new gimmick, but Johnny B. Bad just won at the pay-per-view. I don't really know why you would have him lose here, but again, WCW booking here.
I don't understand why they didn't have the Sting match like the following show.
Yeah.
Or just do a promo with Johnny B. Bad. I can't wait for my match with Sting next week, because they had the whole storyline that they were telling during the match with Billin, where B. Bad was trained by Sting, and he would be facing his mentor, and they didn't follow through on it.
Yeah, and it would have been really interesting to see how it would have been interesting to see Johnny B. Bad take on Sting in like a face versus face match, like in a way. I think it could have been really good.
Yeah, I just don't understand burying that match. Or, I mean, they didn't even do it, like you said. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all, especially with Brian. What they did with Brian Pillman, I don't understand it. Like on the fly booking, they must have just changed their minds like at every moment on what they were going to do, even if they had set something else up. Okay, we're going to do this now. Forget about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. I gave this match a C. It was just there.
Yeah, I liked it more than that, but
yeah. Takashi, what's up, Takashi? Good to see you. It says Goldberg is my favorite wrestler in WCW. Interesting.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Jeremy comes in. I would love it if WWE would make a WCW game, and it would be a what if you were a new guy coming in and you would end the NWO.
Yeah, I think time has passed on that, though. There's a lot of people that would want it, but I think like they've cut back on a lot of legends in their 2K games here lately. I mean, they still have them in there, but the focus is so much on NXT and stuff, because I mean the audience has moved on. They got younger. The best hope for something like that is either a fan mod. Like there's a free modded version of No Mercy that just came out. It's totally golden era WWF. It's called I think it's WWF Legends Challenge. Look it up. It's free download. Everybody's talking about it right now. And there's also like modded versions for WCW, and I'm sure somebody's working on a game like that right now. And
definitely.
Also, Ultra Pro Wrestling. It's in the spirit of those classic N64 games. It's coming out next fall, 2024. They've signed a lot of legends so far as DLC, so you might want to check that out.
Sounds very interesting. I think definitely something I want to check out, because I think it's like one of those things where like I kind of miss out on like there, even though there's a lot of wrestling games out there, it's like I really want to just go back and like play like the older games, because
it's funny you should say that, because I sailed the seven seas, and I may have found and acquired some booty where of the older games. I may have a couple hundred or so. I'll have to talk to you at some point. But yeah, I know quite a bit about the old style wrestling games, and I can hook you up, and we can maybe talk about them sometime.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to do that because it combines two of my favorite things, video games and wrestling. So
Yeah,
I would definitely love to.
a lot of them stunk. I'm just telling you right now, a lot of them were shit. But there was quite a few good ones. Most of the good ones, they were Japan only, and that sucks though because to learn how to play them, you gotta hit the facts forums, of the internet and try to find the control listings and stuff. But once you get the controls down, you can see they got a lot better games than we did over here.
Oh no, I've seen gameplay of them and they look fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like we just they just have all the good shit.
Well, the problem was WWF originally, and at the crucial moments when Japan's getting the best games, they had their toy and game license as one. They weren't split up. So LJN, who was making those big rubber figures at the time, they had the game license, and they were pumping out some awful, like awful wrestling games on the Nintendo and Super Nintendo. So while Japan's getting Fire Pro and Natsumi Championship Wrestling and all these great games, and we're stuck with crap from LGN. It's so bad that the angry video game nerd has made fun of those games so many times, and LGN and the games that they produce over the years.
I love Angry Video Game Nerd, and his wrestling video games one is pretty funny, especially where he was wrestling like the Super Brawl cartridge, and then he ends up coming, and then the cartridge comes back and hits with the back with a chair and starts cheering like he's the bad guy. I'm like, all right, that's pretty funny.
Classic stuff.
Very classic. Jeremy comes in. How would you end the NWO?
Oh boy, I would do it a lot sooner than when they did.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have had as many members.
Because I think the problem with this is if you're gonna do this, you kind of have to not necessarily rebook the entirety of the NWO, but you have to make adjustments. You have to limit the amount of members. You kind of have to I'm gonna go off on this little bit of a tangent because this is some of the ideas I've had. You limit the amount. I'd say the NWO, you need to restrict it to only wrestlers who have worked in the WWF, meaning Hogan, Hall, Nash. I would say Six, aka X-Pac. You have Ted DiBiase. This is going to be controversial, but I would not put Eric Bischoff in the NWO. I just think it would make more sense if Ted DiBiase was the one that was funding the NWO. He's the manager of the group. I guess you could put Vincent in there. You could put guys like Kurt Hennig in there when he comes in. Guys Luger. Luger, but I could understand if maybe they didn't want to put Luger in with the NWO, which would be fine. I would say put Savage in the NWO, but have it to where Savage doesn't really want to be part of the NWO, but mainly he's in the NWO because he's kind of forced to. He's kind of what they did in real life, but instead of Savage being automatic, oh, I'm for the NWO, he's I really want to be here. And so you could keep this conflict between him and Hogan where he still hates Hogan with a passion, and Hogan hates Savage, but Hogan's keeping him in the NWO so that way Savage can't he can't attack him or else he gets fired or something. Now, you can still do the Sting stuff, that's fine.
What would you do with Bret Hart though when he came in?
See, this actually kind of intertwines. Bret Hart never joins the NWO. I would say Bret Hart is more of a tweener who's wrestling everybody type of thing. He's not. He still does not like the NWO, but he's also wrestling WCW guys because he's really only there to be champion. He's not there to be he's not supporting WCW. He's not supporting NWO. He's just, look, I want to be world champion. I'm going to beat whoever I beat.
Would you have him reform like a version of the Hart Foundation with Neidhart, Bulldog, maybe he who shall not be named, and Chris Jericho?
Yeah, see, that would be a really cool idea, but I never really thought about that in my booking because I always figured like Brett would be more the singles guy and he's doing his own thing.
I got you.
So I'd say all that goes into 96, 97, and then you could, instead of doing the stupid finish at Starrcade, just have Sting win clean. Like maybe you could still have Bret Hart debut at Starrcade. You could help Sting beat up the NWO, but none of that Nick Patrick stuff. Just have Sting beat Hogan clean as you can. So that way everybody's like, oh my God, this is a big moment, because it should have been their big moment, but it never did. And then you could do the NWO Hollywood Wolfpack stuff. You could do the Goldberg push. But then everything ends at Starrcade 98, where you have two big main events. Goldberg, who's the WCW champion, against Bret Hart. And then you have Hollywood Hogan versus Kevin Nash. The winner gets ownership of the NWO. And then at the main event of Starrcade 98, Nash beats Hogan. The NWO is gone. And then Bret Hart beats Goldberg to end the streak and win the WCW title.
Man, you got that all figured out.
It's at least the most ideal timeline. Like, I know they probably wouldn't have went with it, but I feel like that's really the only way that anybody would really be happy with it. And then
no NWO Black and White led by Stevie Ray?
No.
Oh.
Sadly, no. But, I think it benefits everybody. And plus, I would kind of book 1999 to be kind of like Hulk Hogan's, not necessarily retirement tour, but sort of be like Hogan's redemption of being a babyface. Like, he's going up against the Hits, which culminates in the main event of Starrcade of 1999, the turn of the decade, with two of the biggest wrestlers at that time in the same company for the WCW title, Hulk Hogan versus Bret Hart.
You know what I do? I do exactly what you did, but I'd have Nash or whoever give the rights to the NWO to Vincent, and then Vince has to go around and see if anybody wants to join his NWO, and that would be the remainder of the storyline. He's just going around like, hey, you want to join the NWO? And everybody be like, no, thanks, no.
It should end with Scott Steiner beating the shit out of Vincent.
Well,
that's the only ideal way for that to end.
Well, Virgil had to get his fuck money.
Oh, sure. So anyway, we went on this really big tangent.
We went on several tangents.
Yeah, we did. But, I actually kind of like it that way because, again, you don't get a chance to really talk about this often. So it's kind of one of those things that I like doing. But getting back on track here.
Time for Baywatch.
Yes, the Baywatch. So the show ends up cutting to Macho Man Randy Savage. Previously he's like doing reps, on the Baywatch beach. Everyone's like, yeah, Randy Savage, yeah. Like, keep going. And then like Taskmaster comes in and like attacks him. He's holding that big like dumbbell down. He's like, like, I'm gonna kill you. And then like he throws sand in Randy Savage's eyes and beats him up before Ric Flair comes in. He's like, hey, that's enough. This devil. And then Mean Gene Okerlund, and now he's cutting a promo with Randy Savage where he's like, so, like, what's the deal here? What's the deal with Ric Flair? Then Randy Savage is like, thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, I
don't like you.
I don't like Ric Flair. He sucks. So thanks, but no thanks. And then, like, he starts, like, threatening to kill the Taskmaster. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Randy, chill out here. It's not that big a deal here. And then he's like, now, I don't know if Hulk Hogan's dead or not, or if he's licking his wounds. But I'll tell you one thing. He's a terrible judge of character because Luger's a piece of shit. Now, I didn't really say that, but that's kind of what I would like to think he said. Basically, he's like, yeah, Luger has his own, like, intentions, and then, like, he cheap shotted him during War Games, and that he's drawing a line in the sand. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, Savage obviously doesn't. That videotape videotape machine, the VCR that you saw in the doctored shots of the Ric Flair Savage photos from WrestleMania 8. That VCR obviously was Elizabeth, and he didn't get that during the divorce, so he couldn't go back and watch Fall Brawl and see that the cheap shot that he says was a cheap shot. It wasn't a cheap shot. Luger accidentally hit him. But no, Savage thinks it's a cheap shot because Savage doesn't go to the tape. He doesn't watch replays.
No. He's like, if you're with me, I'm drawing a line saying, if you're with me, it's going to be really cool. And then Luger ends up coming out. He's like, you know what, Randy Savage? You know what your problem is? I think you're jealous. I think that you also want to be WCW World Champion. And Randy Savage is like, yeah, that's right. But I'm also going to fight you. And then then he's like pushing him and slapping him. And BG's like, no, not here. Not here. Oh my God, no. Not here, please. No, he's freaking out. He's like, oh my God, this can't be happening. No, please stop.
Why would Savage be jealous of Luger? I mean, Savage has got that badass fringe red and white outfit with the cowboy hat he was wearing. That was badass. He ain't jealous of Luger with a wardrobe like that.
No, he's got that drip.
That Savage drip. That Savage drip. That Slim Jim drip.
But I will say, though, I really did like this little interaction here between Luger and Savage because, again, you're kind of building off of the whole over the last couple of weeks, Savage does not trust Luger whatsoever, and Luger's like, look, I want Hogan clearly respects me, Sting respects me, why don't you? And him even bringing up the whole oh, you're jealous, you want the WCW, you just want to be world champion. It's I kind of see where Luger's coming from because even Savage is yeah, I want to be world champion, but at the same time, I'm not going to be a dick about it. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see why Savage doesn't trust him because he never. It would be cool if they would have played off something that happened in WWF, but nothing happened in WWF, so it comes out of nowhere. So, because he was on Luger's, side back in WWF. He was like, oh, look, he's going to slam Yokozuna on the aircraft carrier. It just – and then he was in the ring at SummerSlam 93 with the Steiners and Tatanka celebrating the count-out victory Luger had over Yokozuna. So, he's firmly supposed to be in Luger's camp and trusting him. But for some reason – between going from WWF to WCW, he's like, I don't like that Luger guy. I don't. Always remember, continuity for the most part in wrestling, there's none.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in two different companies.
Yeah. Maybe he only caught the first half of the Tatanka thing with Luger where they said he sold out and he didn't catch the rest of it and found out it was actually Tatanka. He's still thinking whoa.
You think he was watching Raw at the time and he just fell asleep and forgot about it?
No, that music that just came in that took me off guard there. But yeah, exactly. He must have missed half of that program with Tatanka and Lex Luger.
Oh, he probably did.
Yeah.
So we do get a quick recap for the main event where Hulk Hogan's driving his Harley Davidson that was given to him by the fans, but then
messed that bike up.
The Giant comes in on his monster truck and he destroys the Harley Davidson and Hulk Hogan's freaking out. He's like, what have you done, dude? You're tearing me apart. I'm gonna beat you up. You're tearing me apart, dude.
And he's just laughing at him. He's like, ah.
And then we get a recap of when the Giant broke Hulk Hogan's neck and kills him, but then Hulk Hogan comes back. So,
yeah. Well, he's immortal.
He is the immortal Hulk Hogan, which we do here in week 3, where Hulk Hogan comes in with his neck brace. So now it's time for our main event of this week's Nitro of Nature Boy Ric Flair against Flyin Brian. I think this is where they start calling him Brian Pillman, I believe. Either this week or the following week, he starts being called Brian Pillman. surprisingly, like both guys, like on paper, this sounds like a really good match. And I think if it had more time, it definitely would have been really good. But
It was short, super
it
short.
was way too short. But some stuff happens here, which I'll get into here. A lot of chops and strikes here. Brian Pillman at one point misses a drop kick. I think like when Brian hits the drop kick, like Flair starts like doing like the Flair strut and like starts like, you know, doing Flair things. He ends up throwing him out of the ring, and then I shit you not, for the second night in a row, in the context of this, Ric Flair goes up to the top and on the outside hits a diving axe handle. Again,
Yeah.
this never happens, but yet 2 shows in a row, he's like going up to the top, and like he ends up like going and hitting the diving axe handle. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So Brian Pillman ends up taking control after he ends up hot shotting Rick into the ropes. He kind of works on him a little bit. Flair ends up doing the Flair flip in the corner and ends up hitting Brian with a clothesline from the apron. Goes back up to the top again, but instead of being slammed, Brian Pillman ends up countering it with a drop kick, which I thought was very interesting.
Yep.
He then goes after the arm, which Arn Anderson worked on at Fall Brawl. They go back to the outside where Ric Flair does a snake eyes on the barricade. Flair and they go back inside the ring. Pillman goes for the sunset flip, but then Flair ends up like punching him a bunch of times. Goes back to the top rope again. Now 2 times is too much, but 3 times at this rate, we all know Ric Flair's getting thrown off, and of course, Ric Flair gets thrown off. So Brian ends up going to the top rope, but then he misses, like, I think it was like his cross, like a splash, and then he counters and then Rick puts in the figure 4. Brian counters into a pin, which he kicks out. Flair then ends up countering the headlock, which I thought looked really cool. Like, it looked like he was going for the knee breaker, but then it hits like the belly to back suplex, and then hits the figure, then puts in the figure 4 for the submission. Flair wins, and then after the match, he cuts a promo saying that how next week he's going to beat Arn Anderson's ass, which, doesn't happen next week, but the following week.
You can't say that on TV, pal.
You can't say it on TV. Like, you can't say that. Like, that's like basically like every time Ric Flair is on TV, they're like, nope, Rick, you can't say that. That's too far. You're going too far, Rick. You can't do that. It was okay. Like, it wasn't bad. I will say it was a fun match.
Yeah.
But it was just too short. Like, it felt
Too
like
short.
if it had a few more minutes, like, I think this match would have been great. But for what it was, it's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but I will say it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty good.
It was all right.
Yeah.
So that ended this week's Nitro.
Well, it kind of did. Heenan said that there was something going on in the back, and he was super excited about it. But Bischoff was like, who cares what's going on in the back? We're going to run down next week's card. And I was like, what's going on in the back? It was before they actually started throwing it to the back, which they started doing a lot at the end of Nitro. And they didn't do it this time. I guess they didn't have extra cameraman, but he was like, something's happening in the back.
The only theory I have on that is it's probably just Savage and Luger like fighting backstage or something.
Oh.
Or the Giant killed somebody backstage, but then that could have happened too.
Well, maybe they had free pizza or something. We don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that ended that week's episode of Nitro. A lot of just recapping Fall Brawl, not a lot of like actual stuff going on, but
yeah. But this next episode, I like I told you before the show started, this episode 2 of these 3, this was the first episode that really felt like Nitro, like the Nitro that I remember watching back in the day. They sometimes, like I always say, TV shows sometimes take a few episodes to get their footing. This is the episode where they got their footing, and it feels like the Nitro that the how it is for most of its run. They've got the ring set up right. They've expanded the between the apron and the barricade. The format's the same, like how I remembered it all the way through. So this is the first one that really had that Nitro formula going for it.
Yeah. I mean, this next episode is quite interesting because
Yep.
I think more happened on this week's episode than I think last week's, but I think this week's episode really mainly focuses more on the Giant and also like building up his match with Hogan at Halloween Havoc, which is on the 20th. Well, now we're on the 25th episode. This is the week that we're talking about here.
Also, it also builds more on the Savage Luger rivalry, which we'll see here in a second.
Yes, and if you want to hear the ratings, Nitro did a 2.7, whereas Raw did a 1.9. So this is actually the first time that Nitro beat Raw in the ratings.
Okay.
The more you know.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're in Florence, South Carolina for WCW Nitro on September 25th. We kick things off very hot here. Alex Wright, who got a very big reaction from the crowd.
And this is a pretty darn good match with Disco Inferno's debut on Monday Nitro.
Yes.
Him and Alex Wright. A great action-packed match.
This was surprisingly a good match, too. Disco Inferno comes out. He's doing the, generic, stereotypical, I'm like a disco guy. I'm doing the disco dance. So the match, starts where, like, Disco attacks, like, before the bell rings. He ends up hitting, like, a back elbow and an elbow drop. Alex Wright ends up hitting, like, a springboard drop kick to the back, which I thought that looked pretty gnarly. Alex ends up hitting a jump wheel kick for a 2, which that looked really cool. Alex ends up doing a dive to the outside and then Alex does a cartwheel in the match, but then he gets like put into like a belly to belly position where he gets thrown into the ropes. I thought that looked rough. Alex Wright ends up hitting an arm drag, to get out of it because Disco's like working on him a little bit, so he tries to hit an arm drag to get away, but then gets hit with a clothesline. Alex ends up hitting a drop kick where then Disco falls off the top rope because he was on top. Alex ends up hitting like this really nice spinning uppercut, which looked good. Disco ends up hitting a side suplex, and then he goes for like a neck breaker, which then Alex Wright counters that into a roll up for the 3. This was a surprisingly fun match. I was like, oh wow, this wasn't expecting that.
I think this is probably the second best match of these 3 shows.
I actually will agree with you. Like, this was one of the more, like, surprising matches of, like, the Nitros we've seen because, Alex Wright, who's, talented in his own right. And I'll say this about Disco Inferno. I think he was solid. Like, I don't think he was the best.
No.
But he was decent.
Yeah, and, he was decent.
And I think he definitely worked here with Alex Wright. He put out a solid showing here. I mean, I really have nothing to complain about. Again, maybe it was a bit too short, but I honestly think because of it being short, it actually kind of worked out in its favor a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I gave the Flair Brian match C+. I'm going to give this a B-. I thought this was a good match. You know what? I'm going to upgrade it to a B. I think it was a really good match.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe if it had a couple more minutes, but other than that, I don't have anything to complain about.
Yeah, this next match, man, it makes up for that shitty Fall Brawl match Craig Pittman had. Because he pulled out some moves I've never seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. But before that, we got a promo here from the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan. Or no, we got 2 promos. So Hogan, he's wearing a neck brace because he just got his neck broke by the Giant at Fall Brawl. Like, he's like doing some neck workouts with like Jimmy Hart with the belt on top. Hogan's cutting a promo saying he didn't die and he hasn't missed a workout. I haven't missed a workout, dude. I'll be torn apart, brother. And so he's saying like he's gonna beat the Stinky Giant with like Stinky Palm. and he like ends up challenging the Giant to a. He's like, I'm gonna build a monster truck, and you know what, Giant, I'm gonna face you in your monster truck, and then guess what? After that, I'm gonna give you a WCW World Title match, dude. I'm gonna beat your brother Jack, and there's nothing that's gonna stop me. And then this is where they start. This is where they start teasing the dark side Hulk Hogan thing, because he has like he has the dark cross on, but then he ends up lifting. He takes it off and he shows like the normal cross. He's like, you know, I'm gonna beat you, dude. I had to do some soul searching, brother, but I'm gonna kill you, Jack. I'm gonna beat you up, Jack. I'm gonna slam you, dude. And then I'm gonna put you back in like, I think he like said in like the promo, like he's gonna put him back where like he's gonna put him in the grave like next to his father. I was like, damn Hogan, that's dark.
Yep.
So that was the entire promo. Again, it builds up to the stupid monster truck match at Halloween Havoc, while also setting up the world title match in the main event of Halloween Havoc. So, okay, it was good promo here. Which then, of course, we got to follow that up with another promo here. So we get a quick recap of the Randy Savage Lex Luger thing from last week, and you know, Mean Gene's in the ring with Randy Savage, and like apparently Luger now wants to talk with Randy Savage. And the basis of this promo is, again, same thing as last week. They don't like each other. Luger just wants respect from Randy Savage, so he's like, look, I'm going to challenge you to a match, and I'm going to put my world title shot on the line because I know you want to be world champion, but if I lose, then I'll leave WCW, which means that he's going to beat Randy Savage next week. But Randy Savage is like, you know what? I like that. And you know what? They agreed to have that as one of the big matches for next week's Nitro. And then after this, they confirmed that Halloween Havoc is going to be Machine versus Machine. Hulk Hogan versus the Giant at Halloween Havoc in a monster truck match. Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing.
On a roof.
On the roof. And then he's going to put the world title on the line. Let's hope no one falls off that roof.
Yep. Yeah, let's hope not.
Oh, God. All right. So, yeah, now we're getting into this next matchup. It's Kurosawa versus Sergeant Craig Pittman. And I will agree with you, like, compared to the crap we saw at Fall Brawl, this one was not half bad. I'm going to give, like, a couple things here. Pittman, you know, he ends up hitting, like, 2 midsection headbutts, which then Kurosawa comes in, like, he works on him a bit, hitting a couple kicks. Basement drop kick, and then like he pulls up like the mat on the concrete floor. He ends up like Pittman gets dropped back first on that concrete, which I was like, ooh,
yeah,
that looked rough. Kurosawa, you know, ends up hitting a judo throw where Sawa goes after the arm. Sawa ends up getting thrown over the top rope, where then Pittman like starts headbutting him again. Pittman hits like a couple of like big headbutts and a belly to belly, which then he locks in the code red, which then Kurosawa gets to the rope. Then Kurosawa goes for a submission, where then Pittman counters that with like a big like throw. They trade counters before Kurosawa hits the German suplex for the 3. This one was a surprisingly decent match here, because like I saw who was involved and went, I don't know how I feel about this. But
there was one point where Pittman, he had him in like an arm bar lock or whatever, standing arm bar lock. And he just picks him up over his head, way high over his head, picks Kurosawa up, and he just slings him behind him out of that arm bar lock. I've never seen that done before. It's like a standing arm bar. He lifts him up, and then he just tosses him, flips him over. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. And I think he also – I think after he left after he retired – he joined Orndorff as one of the head trainers of the Monster Factory down there.
Yeah, I believe it.
He should have had somebody else do that move, because that was an awesome move.
It was very cool. I gave this match around like, I think now I'm gonna change it to about a C+. Again, it's nothing. It was fun, but
yeah.
nothing
Also, Kurosawa had him in an armbar, and he countered it into a gut wrench suplex. That was neat too.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
looked cool.
I know.
Looked very cool.
The people out there listening be like, well, they know the names of the moves and stuff. I don't. I'm just saying. We're hardcore on the wrestling. We know the names of the moves, and sometimes we'll get a little bit nerdy about it.
Very true. Very true. So after this, Mean Gene cuts a promo with Flyin Brian and Arn Anderson. Like, he's talking about, like, oh, how, like, that's so low of you. How could you do this to Ric Flair? He's your friend. And then, like,
Let me tell you, Pillman is cool, badass motherfucker. He had. Let me tell you something. He had the man. Did you see that sweet ass fanny pack he had? Man, I miss fanny packs. I mean, and he had the gall, to go out there and wear that on national TV. Man, it was a different time, I know, but I mean, still, fanny packs, man. Man, they're awesome. They need to have a comeback.
Fanny packs are indeed cool. And, like, Flyin Brian's, like, talking about how, like,
are you just saying that, or you just agree with me?
Yes.
Okay.
So Flyin Brian's talking about how Ric Flair is at an all-time low and that Ric Flair can't save a partner to save his life. And then Arn's like, I'm great at tag team wrestling. And Ric Flair, you're not going to be able to find a partner. Randy Savage, you punched his dad. He ain't helping you. Sting, you tried to cripple him. So, yeah, that ain't happening either. And it's coming around for you. I was there to help you, but now ain't happening now. So now they're really, like, doing the whole thing where, like, Arn and Brian are a tag team, and they're gonna gun for Ric Flair because Ric Flair's gone insane, even though Ric Flair thus far has just been Ric Flair.
Yeah.
They're like, he's obsessed with Hulk Hogan. I'm like, he really hasn't talked about Hulk Hogan in, like, a couple weeks, so
at all.
I'm pretty sure he's fine.
Not much.
Like, I know, I mean, there was, like, the second week in Nitro where, like, he's talking about Hogan, but that was about it. I mean, since then, he's got, like, his own issues going on.
I don't know. Like I said, it's just a really weirdly booked, like, storyline between all of them. I don't know. They should have just immediately reformed the Horsemen. After the match, and be like, hey, let's get together. Let's end this. But no, they didn't know what to do. When it was obvious for them to form, just form the Horsemen. That's all you got to do.
I think they wanted to do it this way because they wanted to do Arn Flair for the pay-per-view, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, immediately after that, they shouldn't have the run in. They should have just go the time limit or something, or do a double disqualification and be like, okay, or do something where they both pass out and it's a no contest, and then they're like, okay, let's make up. We shake each other's hands, and then we're going to reform the Horsemen. Like everybody's yay, But it's so convoluted. Everything they're doing with Pillman, it doesn't really make sense. So no. I don't know. Especially if it leads to what you say is going to happen with later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't know what they were doing.
No, they didn't. Before we get into our next match, we have our Saturday night. Of course, we got to talk about what's going on Saturday night. Dusty Rhodes is the co-host. Johnny Bad's getting his WCW US title opportunity against Sting, which, again, of course, doesn't show up. The new WCW World Tag Team Champions, the American Males, are in action, and then we're going to see an appearance from the Giant and the Taskmaster. Again, Saturday night, getting all those bangers.
Bangers.
Too bad we can't see them.
Yeah.
So
too bad.
Now it's time for our co-main event, which is Macho Man Randy Savage taking on the Taskmaster. This stems from the whole thing where Taskmaster attacks Savage and like the whole thing with the Dungeon of Doom and Hogan. So Zodiac, who came out with Taskmaster, attacks Randy Savage, where the referee is distracted. Sullivan ends up crouching Savage on the barricade. Macho Man tries to fight back, but like Sullivan is just on top of it because like Savage is hurt. Savage ends up hitting Sullivan with a back body drop on the floor, and then a diving accident to get back in control. And then this is where Savage starts beating up Sullivan and Zodiac. The ref's telling him stop, and then gets DQ'd because he throws the ref. So Savage is beating up everybody in plain sight. Savage, he's trying to hit the elbow drop of both Zodiac and the Taskmaster. He only hits Zodiac. And this is where the Giant comes in and hits the big choke slam on Savage, which, by the way, the choke slam looks really cool here. Like, he goes down with them, and it looks brutal. The Giant comes in, and, like, a bunch of wrestlers are trying to stop him from breaking Savage's neck. Giant choke slams them. Then Alex Wright comes in and tries to do, like, a cross body, which then the Giant catches him and, like, does this bear hug and, like, slams him down. I'm like, that should have been his finisher, because that looked cool. Then Luger comes out.
But you really want him doing that when he gains all that weight in WWE? That would kill somebody.
Now that you're right, I don't think that would have been a good idea long term. But here, I wouldn't have minded it as a temporary finisher. So Luger comes in and, like, no one knows what's going on because they don't know if we should trust Luger or not. Like, everybody's
This was so weird.
Yeah.
It was so weird how they did that. Because he just stands over Savage. And it's so weird.
Like, it makes you think, like, he's going to attack Savage, but then the Giant stops him and then choke slams Luger after Luger tries to slam the Giant. And then that's kind of how it ends. And especially where Luger is going to have a match in the main event here. This was just a really weird segment.
The Taskmaster ends up yelling at the Giant, like, why'd you do that for? Why'd you do that?
Like, at that point now we know that Luger is at least somewhat working with the Dungeon of Doom. Like, now you just kind of were just like, well, now it's clear he's definitely working with them, unless they do, like, the twist where it's revealed where, of course, this is not the case, where it's like, oh, nope, Luger wasn't with us all along. This was just a really weird segment. Like, I get the whole building up the Giant thing, but you didn't really need to attack Luger here. Like, I guess it was, they tried to do it so that way it wasn't apparent if Luger was working with them, but there was just a better way to do it.
They should have left the ring, and then Luger should have came in or something. And I don't know. It was just. It's like they come up with all these plans, and I don't know if they're like, okay, you just go out there and do the best you can do. We don't need to, like, go into all this detail about you just ad lib. Just go out there and do the best you can. We ain't got much time. You don't need to think too hard about it. Just go out there and have at it. And it ends up being really, really odd. Odd.
Like, as far as the match itself goes, I gave it a D because, like, it really wasn't a match. It was just more of it felt more like an angle disguised as a match. Like, it was more done to build up the Giant, but it wasn't so much of, like, a match. Like, it was just more of it was just there. Like, it was there to just sort of be for something bigger, which this leads into our main event, which is Lex Luger taking on Meng. Luger's, like, dead in the ring. Like, he's, like, hurt. And, like, Meng's attacking him. And, Meng ends up hitting a pile driver during the match. Meng hits a suplex. Luger's trying to fight back, but then he ends up getting hit with a gut wrench backbreaker, which looked cool. Meng hits a leg drop. A lot of holds here. Meng ends up hitting the Samoan drop. Luger tries to, like, ends up counting a second rope move with a face plant. And, like, Luger's trying to fight back, like, throughout. Like, yeah. And I do appreciate Luger selling here. Like, he's selling the choke slam. Like, he's hurt. And, like, he ends up, like, trying to fight him. And, like, he clotheslines him in the corner, but, like, Luger falls back. And, like, he's still hurt. The referee's distracted, which then Meng ends up hitting Luger with the golden spike for the 3. Credit on Luger for selling the choke slam and making the Giant look, like, dominant and the choke slam look threatening. But as far as matches go, I would not have main evented the show with this because it's strange. Like,
Yeah, well, that's WCW in a nutshell. Strange, but yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
like
it's
as
a lot. You're gonna be scratching your head at a lot of these shows.
like it I thought it would have made more sense if you're gonna have the whole Giant beats up everybody ending. Like that should have just been the ending of the show, and then just have
Yeah,
Luger and Mang be like the co-main, and then have Giant destroy everybody at the end of the show. Like there was really no point to really have this match. Like again, I like Mang. It was cool seeing him, and it was interesting to see him get a win over Luger, but it was just like, did we really need this?
just have a
No.
different match. Just don't do the
Yeah.
main. Have a different match and then end like you said with the Savage Luger deal.
Yeah, this one was just it was just strange. Like again, I know that WCW gets a lot weirder and a lot stupider later on. And granted, this is
Yeah,
not the stupidest thing they've ever done, but it's just one of those things
no.
like if it was done better, I could see where they were going with it. But other than that,
But like I said, I think this was the first episode since we started reviewing that actually felt like a traditional Nitro. They got everything, it just everything clicked, even though that ending didn't click. It's but that's just WCW for you.
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know what they were doing half the time.
No, I would say for the most part they didn't. And kind of going back to the Paul Orndorff thing, like I know like, when Hogan came in, they were doing the whole like trying to see what would work. I'm surprised with Paul Orndorff there. They didn't try to replicate what Orndorff did with Hogan in WCW.
Yeah, there's stories. I mean, if you watch any of the WCW retrospectives, they said that they did things that Vince McMahon later did, a lot, where they would be no set program before the show. The wrestlers would know what was going to happen until like literally minutes before their matches that they would say, okay, you're on next, and it was just run by the seat of their pants booking. I mean, it just
Right.
like they just ad libbed everything like up until the last minute.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that, especially in the later days. But here, it's like you would think, like especially earlier on, like because they're starting up this new show, that they would have some sort of consistency and like some quality control. But
Yeah.
I think ultimately that's kind of one of the factors in WCW's downfall. Like not its main one, but definitely one of the many is I just feel like it's just a lot of it is inconsistency.
Yeah.
And it's going to bite him back in the ass in the end now, not in 1995, because here it's like you can make the argument, well, it's 1995, they just started, cut them some slack, but I don't know. Like they've been around this long. I don't know if I could really make excuses for them, but I guess that's just the way it goes, I suppose.
That's just the way it goes.
But
now, episode 3.
Yes, I know everybody's like, oh, I bet I'm before everybody's like, oh, why are you guys going through it so quick? A lot of these matches go really quick, so
yeah,
like it's again not our fault that we're going really quick. It's just there's a lot of these matches there's not a lot to talk about, and plus these promos they're straight to the point. So we're not going to go too deep into them. Which leads us into October 2nd episode of Nitro, which is kind of funny that, October is going to be next month and we're ending the month. We ended the month of September and now we're in October. Yep. Funny how that works out. WCW Monday Nitro, that was on October 2nd, 1995, from Denver, Colorado. Nitro drew a 2.5 and Raw also hit a 2.5.
Huh.
So it's very split down the middle here.
This might be around the time Bret Hart was coming back in WWF to face Diesel. at
That
Survivor Series. I don't know how long they built that up. I can't remember. I don't remember if there was an October pay-per-view that year or they just
it might have at most been an In Your House, but I'm gonna look that up because I do know that the next month after this is in November, which is Survivor Series, where Brett wins the belt in a fantastic match against Diesel, by the way. Which I actually watched that. I believe I told you this. I watched this. I think it was like a few months ago. Like it's a great match.
It might be my favorite match of all time.
It's up there for me, and it's definitely one of my favorite Kevin Nash matches. Which, Nash. We'll definitely talk more about this when Nash comes into WCW. But I think what Nash is great when he has somebody else that can really like
carry him.
Yeah. But Nash,
like a Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart.
Yeah. It was just it was very good. And actually, yes, there was a pay-per-view in October. It was In Your House 4, where Diesel and British Bulldog had a match that was so bad. Vince McMahon literally threw his headset off and said that was fucking horrible.
Oh,
and he's like flipping out.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't think I ordered one.
I guess you didn't miss anything. Apparently, it was so bad that even Vince McMahon was like, "Wow, that's bad." Now I'm going to question my decisions on this. Like that kind of. So here's what I'm reading here. Apparently, it was so bad. Vince McMahon, who was doing commentary, threw his headset off. And, after the pay-per-view finished, he's like, horrible, fucking horrible at Diesel. Like, he stormed to the back and ends up screaming at Bruce Pritchard about how bad it was. Like,
shit.
Bulldog, he had to apologize backstage for how bad it was. And even Kevin Nash said, that's where he knew his time and the company was over, was, after that match, because it was so bad. Which, it's very interesting. Especially where guys like Razor Ramon, Scott Hall was. Scott Hall won the IC title on that show, and Diesel was the world champion at that time. And then not too long afterwards, they come to WCW and they changed the game in terms of wrestling.
Yeah, but of course they had Hogan to prop them up. I mean,
yeah. But to be fair,
they didn't have to rely on their wrestling skills. They were mostly the promos and the vignettes that got them over, and attacking everybody, just going ape shit on everybody backstage, and that big whole brawl they had in the parking lot, and the spray paint and stuff. It wasn't really the matches; it's everything but the matches that got them over.
Oh, sure. But, guys like Nash, I could kind of defend that because, Nash was just genuinely cool no matter what, you had him doing. Even, Scott Hall.
Yeah. Nash is cool, but he had a bad habit of telling Dennis Miller type jokes, which were they referenced stuff nobody would get but him. So a lot of the promos he would cut during the NWO segments was like, oh, okay, I might need to look that up. But, oh, wait, Google doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, that's Kevin Nash for you. But we'll talk more about him when we get into 1996. But right now, it's time to talk about WCW Monday Nitro. And before the show starts officially, Ric Flair, the commentary team's going over the show. And then Ric Flair comes in, he storms out. He takes the headset off. I believe it's Eric Bischoff. And he's flipping out. He's like, Arn Anderson, I'm going to kick your ass. Woo! I'm going to beat you up. Woo! He's doing the Ric Flair shtick where he's going to have a heart attack, doing a promo. Because he's so intense. He's storming out. And everyone's confused. Ric Flair was just here and he can't say that on TV. So I thought that was kind of a fun way because I always like listening to a Ric Flair promo no matter what.
I should have went back and looked to see how the Chihuahua reacted to Flair coming out there. It probably scared the shit out of him.
the Chihuahua's been here for the last couple weeks, and and Mongo's like been dressing up the Chihuahua. I believe on this show he had the Chihuahua had like the glasses on with like the slinky eyes.
Yeah. Heenan called him a tarantula.
Oh yeah, like throughout, I think on this show, like apparently the dog pooped and like Bobby Heenan stepped in it, and like Bobby Heenan's
really?
like wiping off his shoe.
When did this happen?
I don't
I
know.
didn't catch that.
Apparently, like I don't know if it was this show or the previous one, but apparently, like Bobby Heenan got poop on his shoe, and like you could see at the end, like he's like wiping it off, and
Oh, I missed that.
indeed. And now we're gonna get into our first match. Surprisingly, only 3 matches here on the show. You have Macho Man Randy Savage take on Lex Luger. If Luger loses, he's gone. But if Randy Savage gets a title shot, but if Luger wins, everything stays the same. A lot of pyro here on the show, in particular with Randy Savage and Luger. So I'm gonna try and break down, because again, this match, surprisingly, not a lot happens. A lot of people, like, especially the commentary team, they're like, "Oh my god, it's the first time ever. It's a dream match that you're gonna see only here on Monday Nitro." It was Randy Savage, Lex Luger. Beginning, they both try a test of strength, but then they end up going for an ad break, because of course you go for an ad break during your big money match here.
Yep.
Savage tries to invite Luger back into the ring, but then Luger's like, nope. And then he ends up like using some agility. Like he comes back into the ring. Now they're pushing and slapping each other, which then, they fight on the floor a little bit. Savage tries to go for a suplex on the floor, which then Luger hits a neck breaker. Luger brings him back in, and then like they do a little bit more stuff. And then Luger does the military press slam on Savage, which again, I always like a good military press slam. Both men, they try to trade backslide attempts, but Luger ends up using his leg on the ropes to prevent the pin, which I thought that was pretty innovative, because you don't really see that.
No.
Luger ends up, doing his own backslide. He gets a 2. Then they both trade shoulder tackles. Then Savage goes for an axe handle off the top, but then gets punched to the gut. He then ends up hitting it on the outside, which then Luger ends up hitting the guardrail. Savage ends up hitting a knee to the back, which then he Irish whips Luger into the ref. Which of course, when you see a ref bump in WCW, interference.
Yeah.
Randy Savage slams him, hits the elbow drop, goes for the 3, and then out comes the Giant. The Giant comes out, he choke slams Savage, which then Luger comes out. And I at least like this. They didn't have Luger just pin Savage. Like Luger, after the choke slam, put Savage into the torture rack, which then he gets a submission victory on Savage, and now he keeps his title shot, and he doesn't have to leave.
Yeah, this was kind of amusing because Savage was trying to sell the attack from the Giant. So he sandbagged Luger when he was trying to pull him up off the mat into the torture rack, because he was having a hard time getting him up into it. But Savage realized this, but to help him get him up on his shoulders while still trying to sell the attack from the Giant, he wraps his arm around Luger's neck to the point where he's choking him so he can balance him on his shoulders to get him up in a torture rack. Of course, he gets the win off the torture rack. But then after he lets him go, Luger's sitting there holding his throat like, oh, God, he was choking me.
I actually didn't notice the choking part, but I did notice like the sandbagging, which I will say that was good selling by Savage, because realistically, like I at least appreciate like guys like Luger and Savage trying to make the Giant like look like the choke slam look like it's like a big like maneuver that will kill you, like because like Savage is like selling it to the point where he's like barely conscious. Like Luger puts him in the torture rack, and the referee just immediately like puts his arm down. Is like, "Yep, it's done." Like Savage was unconscious. Like it wasn't a tap out. It was like more of it was like a he was unconscious type of finish. Which
back in the day they don't. Well, they do it in AEW, I think, still, where they raise the arm up 3 times, and
they really need to go back to that.
Yeah, I think they still do it in AEW, but they don't in WWE. Which is weird.
Very weird.
And they don't do that, and they don't do test of strengths no more. The wrestlers need to do They need to bring those back, even though a lot of the wrestlers say they were shitty, but no, I liked them, man. They were cool.
I think they're cool when they're done right. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want them in every match, but like in a match where you have, like Biggie would say, like big meaty men slapping meat.
What is it? Orange Cassidy. He does them occasionally where he'll raise his arm up, then he'll raise the other hand up, fake him out.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think he's for, but
I give this match. I gave it a C+. I mean, it was fine for what it is. It was, again, same problem as a lot of these matches. It was just too short. Like, it needed.
Yeah, they're not going to give away a good match like that for free on Nitro. That's something that they're going to hold off for a pay-per-view. Where it'd be like, this is the real match,
Yeah, but even then, and it was also kind of weird seeing this match be the opening match, but again,
well, it's a double.
Book it for you. Well, it is a double main event, but this was not the main event. This was like the opening match, but
yeah, well, I mean, you kind of want, if you're going ahead to have Raw, you want to put the big time match probably on first so people can stick with the show.
Oh yeah,
I guess that was their idea back then.
I think what would have made more sense is do Flair Anderson in the opener, and then maybe do Savage Luger main.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though: a WWF fan would be more generated towards Randy Savage and Lex Luger back then than
that's right.
Ric Flair, who was a heel, and Arn Anderson, who hadn't appeared with the company for like 5 years.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I don't know.
I mean, I could see your point. I think maybe it's just because I'm trying to look at it from maybe a structuring standpoint, maybe. But
yeah.
I mean, but you could really do it either way. So before we get into our next match, of course we gotta do our normal Saturday night. So what's going on Saturday night? We're gonna find out what happened to Johnny B. Bad because his tires got slashed. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Big Bubba, and Arn Anderson and Flyin Brian are gonna take on Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater.
Man,
they're getting all the bangers here on WCW Saturday night.
I would like to see the Hacksaw and Big Bubba match, but
it would be interesting. But of course, it's not on Nitro.
No,
and plus, it's not on the network on Peacock. So,
God damn that Peacock!
They just got to ruin the fun for everybody. And even before the next match, Disco Inferno comes out, and like even the commentators are confused. Like, what? Why is Disco Inferno out here? He's not supposed to be here.
We're supposed to have a Mexican, not an Italian. What's going on?
And meanwhile, Bobby Heenan's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm getting funky. And then, Disco Inferno's coming out to dance. And then, of course, Eddie Guerrero interrupts him. And then Eddie Guerrero's like, who is this guy? And, like, he's angry at Disco Inferno. Disco Inferno's just confused. Like, everybody's just like, Eddie's just pissed off at him. And then finally Eddie Guerrero comes to the ring. Like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, Eddie Guerrero, that's pretty cool. And, like, I'll give the announcers this. I'll give Bischoff, Heenan, and Mongo this. Like, they were hyping up this match as, like, a big deal, which it kind of was.
Probably the first time a lot of people had seen the two wrestle, so.
Yeah. If you haven't seen their ECW stuff, this is probably your first, like, real, like, sight of Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, who are two of, like, the best, like, in-ring workers, like, ever. Like, Eddie in particular is, like, one of the best of all time. And
Dean had actually been with the company for a while there because I think I just learned recently he was a ref when he first arrived at WCW. He was doing like the syndicated shows like Main Event and WCW Pro. He was a referee, supposedly.
Interesting. But I don't know how I feel about that because like I always like think of like Dean Malenko as like a freaking like wrestler. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
he was
Yeah.
he was also like one of those like guys who like you could legitimately believe he could hurt you. Cause like
Yeah, he was a straight shooter. I sometimes hung out at a nightclub slash hotel back in the day when they would come to town, and people would ask him for the autographs when they would come through. And it was around the time when he was with He Who Should Not Be Named and Eddie and Shane Douglas in that group that they had, the Radicals
I think it
or
was the
the
Revolution, I think.
Revolution. Yeah. And he's coming through there. He should not be named. Goes in first, and he's following. Malenko's following. He's carrying a big, huge case of Bud Light. And I'm like, "Can I get your autograph?" He just looked at me and gave me that icy stare, like, "Fuck no, I ain't gonna give you no autograph." And he's walked on. That dude was, man. He gave me that look, man. He was, man. He was serious businessman.
I believe it. Like, I mean,
He wasn't
Malenko,
that
like,
tall, though. He was a short little dude. I mean, I'm not that tall, but he was. I mean, but man, that somebody that little had to give you like an icy stare to really, I mean, somebody that little give me an icy stare like that, and you be like taken aback. He was all business.
yeah,
That's why the Iceman, D. Malenko.
like Dean Malenko, like even though like he did do a lot in like WCW. Like I know a lot of people like, oh, Malenko didn't win the world title. I'm like he didn't, but surprisingly Malenko did quite a bit in WCW.
He had a hell of a lot of great matches that people don't take those into account. I mean, they called him Man of 1,000 Holds. I think, hell, that meme of Chris Jericho coming out there naming all of his moves in that one promo that put him over a lot. I mean, years after after WCW had shut down, and everybody was like laughing at Jericho. Every other move would be arm bar. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though before I continue here that I think Malenko's like one of those guys that I think if he was wrestling today, I think he would have really thrived during this era.
Yeah.
Like
Definitely.
Because Malenko was one of those guys like I think he was very underrated. Like he never won like in terms of, like a major world title, but I feel like Malenko is one of those guys that you kind of look at and you say, this is the guy who you look at when you're working to be a wrestler to see what you should like, what your work rate should be. Because
his dad was a wrestler too, and his dad kind of inspired a couple of clowns who were also rappers who we won't talk about right now, but he comes from a wrestling background, and it's understandable why he was so good in the ring. He was raised on it.
Oh, absolutely. And Eddie, and even seeing Eddie here where like this is before Eddie Guerrero was like a big name. Like he was wrestling in a singlet for God's sake.
Yeah.
Which was really weird, but I'm going to talk about surprisingly like on paper, like let me clarify that there's going to be better matches between Guerrero and Malenko later on in the series, but in this episode, it wasn't a long match, and plus it gets interrupted by a segment which we'll talk about here. But like just the like beginning of this match where you have lots of great technical wrestling and lots of counters, and it's a very catch-can like type of match where it's like they had a counter for every counter, and like you're hooked on it, and it's like there's like one point where I think they were going for like it was almost like a catapult like type thing where like they were trying to like test each other's like strength here, but like you got some agility going on. Like it like you got so many counters and like Malenko hitting a drop kick, and then like Eddie went for something in the corner, and then like Malenko hits him with like an Alabama slam and then into a pinning attempt, but then ends up like Eddie counters with his own pinning attempts. Like you got a lot of great stuff here. And I was like, and just as when this match was getting really good, of course, we get interrupted by something in the back. Hulk Hogan's limousine comes in.
Which they
Just
could have
like-
done after the match. They could have done it
Yeah.
after the match. They didn't
But
need to
no.
do it during the match.
It was in the middle of the match, and then like, because like even in early in the first match, like they're like, oh, we're just getting word that Hulk Hogan is gonna be here. We're talking with him in his limousine, and oh nope, we're just finding out. No, he's coming in, and you know, Jimmy Hart comes in, and he's like, no, Hulkster, do not come out, dude, you need to go back in the limo, leave, man. Like Jimmy, like the Giant's coming in, and Hulk goes like, Jimmy, brother, dude, you're my best friend, brother. But guess what? Shut up, dude, because I'm going to beat the Giant up. I'm going to beat that sticky Giant with my sticky pops because I'm torn apart, dude. So Hogan's like cutting this promo about how like he's going to hunt down the Giant and like he's going to come out and say his piece. Which then finally we get back to the match, where Guerrero ends up like going for like a monkey flip, but then like Malenko catches him, but then Guerrero brings him to the outside. Guerrero then jumps off the top rope with like a really like dive that like has like this really nice distance to it. Guerrero then hits the brain buster on Dean Malenko. Then he goes for the frog splash, but Malenko ends up getting his knees up. Then they trade counters again, which then Guerrero ends up getting the pin for the 3. Like, the match was good, but the interruption did kind of take me out of it a little bit because I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a shame. But,
yeah.
you know, regardless, it was the best match of these 3 episodes. Maybe the best match of all the episodes we've seen so far. And it's the start of the Cruiserweight division. That's the match. Of course, you had the Brian Pillman, who wasn't in the first episode. It was
Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yeah, him and Liger. That was a kind of a hint of the Cruiserweight division. This was the match that just blew it up. After this, in came Ray and Hoovy and Psychosis and everybody, and this is the match that started it all, and it was great for what it was.
Yeah, it was very good. It was that, and I agree with you. It's definitely one of the best matches we've seen thus far. I gave it a B- because the problem is it got interrupted. Plus, I felt like it, even though it didn't have enough time, I really wish it had a few more minutes to really get going.
Yep.
It was just one of those like I wish that they did more. But I'm not going to complain over spilled milk. Like it's one of those things. I'm glad we got it, but I wish we could have had a bit more. But thankfully, we're going to get a bit more later down the road with.
Yeah, that's the whole reason. Well, besides NWO cutting a promo in the first half hour, the Cruiserweight division, they're going to give a lot of that time during the first hour and a half to the Cruiserweight division. So, you know, they knew they had something there, and they knew that at 1 hour just wasn't cutting it, and they needed to expand. And once they do, it gives a lot more opportunity for longer matches and more talent to work the show.
Absolutely. So after the match, we then get an in-ring promo with Mean Gene and Hulk Hogan, where Hulk Hogan does a promo where he's like, I've been doing a lot of soul searching, dude. And then there's this kid named Jason.
Well, Hogan, I counted this up. Hogan says brother 8 times within 2 minutes.
Let me tell you something, brother. There's this brother, dude. There's this brother kid, Jack, named Jason, dude. This brother's getting a double lung transplant. And he told me, brother, you need to beat up this sticky Giant, dude. So you know what, brother? I'm going to do what this kid wants. I'm going to find the sticky Giant. I'm going to take my sticky palms and I'm going to hunt him down, dude. Because that's what my brothers say. What you going to do, dude? And like he tears off his shirt. And then like he's like about to like, he's like, he's like, oh, I'm going to hit with my fans, dude, brother. And then like, Kevin Sullivan like disguised as an old woman, like Mean Gene's in the ring. He's like, oh well, this is like, whoa, wait a minute.
That's
a
lady.
Woman. That's a lady. That's a woman. What's going on? And then like, cover team, go back to you. He's like, that's a woman. And then so Kevin
Old
Sullivan
women fans are all women fans.
Very true. So Kevin Sullivan dressed up as this old woman attacks Hogan with the cane. Then he hits Jimmy Hart, knocking him out. So he's attacking Hogan. Then the Giant and the Zodiac come out. Why Zodiac came out, I don't understand. But so he comes out. The Giant breaks Hulk Hogan's neck again.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God. So Hogan's dead again. And
Yep.
just as things can't get any worse, Kevin Sullivan comes out with the clippers and he starts shaving off Hulk Hogan's mustache. Now,
Yep.
this is the biggest sin you could do because Hulk Hogan goes off the deep end after this.
Well, you know why he got it shaved off? Because he was about to film Three Ninjas, something at Magic Mountain or something. It was like the third Three Ninjas movie. So he had to shave off his mustache. I think he cut his hair too at some point during the filming of that.
They did have Hulk Hogan get his hair cut. They tried to cut his hair too, what was left of it, and Bobby Heenan's laughing hysterically at in the booth, and they're like, "Shut up, Heenan! Shut up!" And meanwhile, Heenan's like, "This is the glorious day, the best day of my life. Hulk Hogan, who I hate, my sworn nemesis, is finally dead in the ring. Oh, life can't be much more swell." I like that Bobby Heenan's keeping that continuity that he just hates Hulk Hogan. So he's they're at least keeping it that he just hates him.
It's pretty easy for some people.
Oh, sure. Now, I don't think it was genuine though. I think Bobby Heenan really liked Hogan.
Oh, well.
I would think so if he's going to work with them that much.
Yeah, but I'm just saying some people actually hate Hogan. So
no, I would definitely believe that he was I believe that I would definitely believe people who would say they don't like Hulk Hogan, but at the same time, you kind of have to respect Hogan for what he did for the business, even if granted some of the things he did, yes, are questionable, but it's very.
How about that?
What's that?
How about that main event?
Oh, we're gonna get to that because, of course, the Giant, after he kills Hulk Hogan, what does he do? Well, he just destroys half the roster. He chokeslams the Nasty Boys. He chokeslams the World Tag Team Champions, the American Males, which I think it was either Jerry Sags or they really gave they sold that chokeslam really well. Those chokeslams look brutal. All the while, Hulk Hogan, who's dead in the ring, is getting his mustache shaved off and his hair getting cut. Again, I'm not saying these things for verbatim. This actually happened. He died in the ring, got his mustache shaved off. Meanwhile, this big giant is chokeslamming your tag team, your tag division, and then you have your commentator in the booth just laughing his ass off. If that ain't WCW for you, I don't know what is.
WCW Mayhem.
WCW Mayhem on the PlayStation 1. That fun stuff. And we'll get to that pay-per-view eventually where I forgot it was a pay-per-view. I think they only did it once, or twice.
I imagine it was during the release period. No,
there was two.
Oh.
You have the one where Bret Hart wins the belt, and then you have the 2001 where Scott Steiner becomes world champion.
Ah.
God, I can't wait for when Scott Steiner becomes Big Papa Pump, because that's when I'm really going to get excited for this. But now it's time for our main event after Hulk Hogan died. And by the way, the World Tag Team title match is canceled in memoriam for Hulk Hogan, who's dead. And plus, the tag teams were killed by the Giant. But I would like to pretend in canon that they were just doing this as a memorial for Hulk Hogan, who the Giant murdered on TV. And the Giant will not be sent to prison.
Was the Nasty Boy supposed to get a title shot?
Yeah, apparently the Nasty Boys were going to face the American Males here, but because the Giant chokeslammed all of them, the match
Son
got
of a bitch.
canceled.
Man.
Yeah, I know. The Dungeon of Doom ruins everything.
Damn it.
But we get the main event, which is Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. This is the rematch from Fall Brawl. Again, it's really weird to think that Ric Flair faced Arn Anderson not once, not twice, but now it's going to be 3 times because for next week's episode. So here's, I'm basically going to just tell you, it's kind of the same match as the
But
one.
nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as good.
It wasn't bad. It was still a decent match, but
It is all right.
It
was
is.
okay.
It's just the problem is, again, the problem with a lot of these matches, they do not have a lot of time put into them. So this match kind of felt like it was almost like they were just kind of going through the hits, kind of, because I'll just kind of just go through the bullet points. It's a very strike-heavy match. Arn Anderson hits him with the big. Arn Anderson hits Ric Flair with the back body drop. Arn goes after the arm again. Flair does the Flair flip, sends Arn to the outside. He then throws him into the barricade. They both, trade eye rakes throughout the match, because they're both kind of heels. Like, Arn's definitely the heel here, but Rick's kind of like in the in-between because like nobody knows what's going on. And so, like, Arn does the eye rake, and then, like, he ends up hitting a big back body drop on the outside. I don't remember if this was in the last match, but Arn Anderson hits the AA spine buster, which, again, I love. AA has, like, one of the best spine busters in the biz. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Maybe the best. Maybe the all-time best.
I might agree with you on that. There's a lot of sleeper hold and, like, eye pokes. Like, they try to trade them. Ric Flair ends up hitting the belly to back suplex. Ric Flair does a couple back elbows. He locks in the figure 4, but Arn gets the ropes. Rick goes to the top rope again. Again, this time he's not slammed, but just gets punched in the gut on the outside. Ric Flair ends up counting a pile driver attempt with a backdrop on the floor. They go back in the ring. They're both hurt. Rick ends up counting a DDP by hanging on the ropes. Arn Anderson goes to the second rope, but Ric Flair counters with of course, his Flair chops. Locks in the figure 4 again, and just as when you think he's going to get the tap out win, Brian Pillman comes in and does the splash on the top rope on the Flair, which gives Ric Flair the DQ win. And then at the end of the show, Arn Anderson's beating up Ric Flair with Brian Pillman. Everyone's like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And Ric Flair has no partner. And then, at the end of the show, which I will say this too, I don't think we've ever covered this, but I like how at the end of the show, you get like this brief recap from the announcers where they're just talking about what happened and they're giving their own perspectives. Like, yeah, Bobby Heenan, who's like, I'm torn apart, brother. Because of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. He's like, I don't know who to cheer for because Ric Flair's my man, but Arn Anderson's cool. And they're talking about Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, Lex Luger. And they reveal that next week it's going to be a steel cage match between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. So I guess it's the kind of rubber match. Because they each have one win over the other, and now they're going to face off in a cage match, which you would think they would save it for the...
What type of cage match? I mean, is it the ones where you have to escape or the ones where you can have a pinfall?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
We'll know more next week.
Yeah.
But also next week, Sting and the Shark.
Oh, boy.
I am looking forward to that, just from what I've seen from War Games. It should be a fun match.
Big question. Where the hell is Scott Norton?
That is a great question. I don't know.
He fell off the face of the planet after his debut.
You want to know what happened? He was so embarrassed by the Dungeon of Doom that he had to leave.
Dang.
But yeah, that's that. Also, what's noticeable, even though Sting's working on Saturday night, we haven't seen Sting on Nitro, which is very weird.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been there either. Maybe he's taking some time off.
I don't think so because he was working Saturday night.
Huh. Maybe they were filming Baywatch or something. I don't know. Well, Saturday night wasn't always live. They taped that a lot of times.
That's true. So That's a good question. I don't know what Sting was doing during this time.
Huh.
Maybe I don't think he was taking a break. Maybe he was doing a tour of Japan. Maybe.
Maybe. Who knows?
That'd be more plausible. But yeah, no, we had another great show again this week. We did go on a big tangent about a lot of other stuff, but I think we did. I mean, we still covered the next 3 weeks, past 3 weeks of Nitro, and now we got 3 more weeks of Nitro until Halloween Havoc 1995, where it's machine versus machine. So
Man, I can't believe there was six episodes between those 2 pay-per-views. So, dang, it's going to be really tough when they start becoming 3 hours.
Well, let's see here. When do they start becoming an hour? Because I know that towards the end of 95 is where they go 50 minutes. Let's see here. 96. Well, so still around early 96. It's still around 50 to 40 minutes. Okay. So we're still in April. There's still 45 minutes. May is still 45 minutes. Yeah, May is still 40 minutes. May 20th, it's still around. Oh, no. Okay, May 20th is where of 1996 is where they start going to an hour.
So, okay, does that mean how long was the show? I guess that was the 2-hour episodes or the hour episodes?
I would say maybe 2 hours, because I think if it was 3 hours, I'd say it would be close to around 2 hours, because you have to count
Well, that's not that bad at all. That's not that bad at all. I mean, because you man, they must have had a ton of commercials. Well, they did have a ton of commercials back then. I'm forgetting, but it seems like those would be longer, but I guess not. Once you take all the commercials out, of course, I have the ad tier plan for Peacock, so I'm going to get a lot of ads anyway. But they don't last over a minute and a half each break, so it's not that bad.
I'm just trying to see where they go to the 2-hour mark, because it looks like around 1998 is where they go to 3 hours.
Okay, so this ain't too bad, because they cut. I wonder if they actually cut they weren't commercials, but they were ads in the show, kind of for Slim. I saw one Slim Jim ad during one of the Nitros, but they had order WCW Revenge commercials that were wedged into the show itself. I wonder if they cut those out. Later on, and we'll know in towards 98 when that game comes out. But they had stuff like that, and for other Nintendo games. So I wonder if those are still in the show itself or not.
That's a great question, because there's definitely a lot, because you do see throughout the show that there's a lot of you do see commercials like the Slim Jim commercials plus the ads for Halloween Havoc. So, and
they did a lot of sponsorship for NASCAR too. I'm wondering what's going to happen there, because those were embedded. Well, those might have been WWF. I don't know. I can't remember. I get mixed up. But one thing I was going to ask you is, are we going to have to review Ready to Rumble, because that's totally entwined with the storyline coming up, in 1999, 2000, whenever that happens?
I would say because if it intertwines, I would think we would probably have to. Okay.
So I'll just go ahead and add that to my Voodoo library whenever it goes on sale.
Yeah. It might be one of those special episodes. It's just going to be more we're just going to talk about the movie.
I got you.
We will have special episodes in these quote unquote seasons. Clash of the Champions will be when we get to them, we'll cover those.
We should time that for around the time where David Arquette's there on Nitro with his wife and Kurt Russell. Did you know Kurt Russell was on Nitro once?
I never knew that.
Yeah, they're on the set filming 3,000 Miles to Graceland, and it's when he's in the middle of his wrestling career at WCW, and he shows up at the beginning of that episode, and they're talking about. I think it's around the time when Ready to Rumble had come out, but like I said, WCW gets so crazy towards later on, of course, with Rodman and Leno and David Arquette. But it's going to be a fun ride.
I think it will. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very fun time, and I actually really can't wait to get more into this because we're already 5 weeks in, and we got a lot going on, like a lot of story points, and we got 3 more episodes before we get to Halloween Havoc, and then after that we got World War III, which surprisingly we only have 4 episodes until World War III.
Man, how are we going to cover that match? You better not run down every elimination. That's going to take forever.
No, it probably will. Honestly, I don't know how I'm going to cover it. I'll probably find a way once we get to that point, but it's probably going to be one of those, I'm not really going to cover it.
Yeah. Just the highlights.
Yeah. But with that being said, we are going to wrap this up because we're about 2 hours in. I think, again, great show tonight, as always. I want to thank everybody in chat. Jeremy, I want to thank Deshaun, David, Takashi. I want to thank everybody for being here.
We had a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely a lot more than we had last week for Fall Brawl.
Well, we're just starting out, so.
Yeah. But
gotta get that word out.
Oh, yeah. Now, and also now that we got kind of some consistency going on, at least in terms of the scheduling wise.
You know what you need to do?
What's that?
You know what you need to do? Well, when Guyscar asks you on the Hangout what you do, just don't say, I do stuff on my channel. I talk about wrestling. I just do stuff. You need to tell everybody when the show is and what time it is. Well, of course, we don't have a set time. It's any time on Thursday nights, but you need to say, hey, Thursday nights, come check us out. We got the shit going down on my channel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's too sweet.
Definitely. Yeah, and also want to thank Shifty, too, because, again, I just like talking wrestling, so being able to find people to talk wrestling, but not just wrestling, but this type of wrestling, it's actually really cool.
It's cool. And if you know somebody else that likes to talk wrestling, get them on here. More the merrier.
Definitely. I would love to do that. If any of you guys, on Twitter, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put out not an application, but I'm going to put out a feeler out there to see hey, would any of you guys be interested?
Talk some wrestling.
We're going to talk some wrestling. So with that being said, Shifty, tell everybody where they can find you at.
You can find me on the Twitter. I don't advise it, but it's ShiftyGism. That's Shifty GISM at Twitter, or X, as some people call it, where I talk about all nerdy things and way too much about Star Wars theories and stuff. Ahsoka ending next week. Really excited about that. But yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. Very cool. You can find me here. Now I'm doing these Nitro reviews. I had another show that I was going to do with Shadow, but I don't know when we're going to do that. I got to talk to him about that.
Your schedules ain't matching up.
Yeah. So we're going to try and figure out what's going on with that. I'm also on the Basco Scenarios channel for the Hangout, where we just talk. Right now we're talking Ahsoka, but after Ahsoka ends, we're probably just going to go back to doing we're just going to talk about whatever's going on.
Yeah, all that cool stuff.
And yeah, that's all I got going on right now. So guys, much appreciated. We will be back next week talking WCW Monday Nitro weeks 6 to 8. We got 3 more episodes before Halloween Havoc 95. Machine versus Machine. It's going to be
Monster
a fun
Truck
time.
Man. Sunday.
And I think that this next episode, we're going to be talking about a debut, an iconic debut of a big man.
A big man.
A big debut in my eyes. The greatest debut in the history of this sport.
What?
Who it is? I'm
Who
not
it
going to
is?
tell. I'm not going to tell anybody until next week.
What?
Going to keep you all guessing.
What? Give me a hint.
All right. He's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
He's in an ice block.
No.
Yes.
Oh, wait. It's not who I. No, it's not him. It's not. No, it's not who I was thinking because he had a lot of vignettes leading up to. I was thinking it was Glacier, but no, they have a build up for his
Yeah,
debut.
that's
It's not
him.
Glacier. No. Oh, wait. Is it? Is it the? Okay, I know who it is. Okay.
God, I can't wait. So, guys,
he's not here yet.
He's not here yet, but he'll be here. When?
Very soon. Oh dear.
You guys are going to find out. Guys, much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching. This is the Austinator and Shifty signing out.
Later.
Peace.
That's awesome.